There you go. You can have one. Would love to hear your opinion on Mads Larsen saying that the female freedom in Norway is of greater importance than Norway continuing to exist. Agree or disagree? I personally think the freedom most speak of is an illusion, but we are a delusional species. I don't know who she is per se, Mads Larsen. Is she the one? Oh, she was talking about Norway. Maybe is she a politician in Norway? Wouldn't surprise me because most Scandinavian countries are run almost entirely by cabinets of women. But it's par for the course. And if you would like me to expound upon that, I will. When men organize societies, they do it hierarchically. When women organize societies, it's done in the round. Now, I usually, when I bring up this fact, I usually kind of harp on men being hierarchical, and I'd kind of leave it's pretty self-evident to me that women do society and they organize society in the round. And so it's a communitarian society, a communitarian way of organizing things seems like the natural fit for most women because there's fundamental differences in the male psyche and the female psyche. For men, hierarchies seem like the best way of doing things because it's ideally based on meritocracy. If you do more than the next guy, you outperform the next guy. You should be rewarded with prestige, with status, with money, with food, with whatever, with pussy, whatever it is, right? And that's how men sort of like establish this pecking order. That's how you have alphas and bravos and deltas and gammas and omegas. And don't ask me to go through sociosexual hierarchies right now. I will later if you want. But that's how you kind of get that pecking order, right? Let's not say that there's not a pecking order when it comes to women, but when women organize societies, they are far more likely to compromise personal individual freedom and especially freedom of speech if it means that the collective is going to be better taken care of. Okay, so when it comes to like redistributing wealth, when it comes to redistributive policies, women tend to opt for those things because it seems like the best for all involved, right? And okay, so how does that happen? Well, when you look at how human societies naturally came up through the ages, through our ancestral past to where we're at right now, men were the hunters. We would go out, we go and kill, and we didn't necessarily always have to be big game. It could be fishing, it could be whatever, but you go out, kill the caribou, bring it back. Whoever brings back the most meat gets the most pussy. He gets to be the chief of the tribe, right? He's the guy, or maybe the elders are wise and whatever. But that is what established the hierarchy of male-oriented society. When women organize societies, like I said, it's in the round. It's in socialism seems like a good idea, right? Communitarian seems like a good idea because for women are the weaker sex, okay, or I should say the vulnerable sex, and as such, the natural fit for women is that there is strength in numbers, right? So that's why women tend to opt for communitarianism amongst the gatherers, right? They're hunters and the gatherers. Women were the berry pickers. Beta males were also the berry pickers. And then it seems like a better idea if a collective of women are all on the same are all getting the same thing, right? So it's one for you and one for you and one for you and one for you and one. And Susan, you're pregnant. Here's two for you and one for you, Sally, and one for you, Michelle, and one for you, Diane, whatever. And here you go. And it seems like that seems like logic because everything is done in sort of a communitarian, egalitarian thing. If you wonder why we are so attached to ideas like social constructionism, the blank slate, emotionalism, and egalitarianism, it is because we have opted to allow women to organize society for us since the sexual revolution. So that's how you get someone like Mads Larsen saying that female freedom in Norway is of greater importance than Norway continuing to exist. Continuing to exist, if you look at nationalities, if you look at borders, if you want to know why does it seem like nobody asks these questions when we talk about like open borders and we talk about like immigration, we talk about deporting illegal aliens and all this other stuff and we do this every election cycle and nothing happens. We just talk about it. Nothing really happens. Nobody builds a wall. Nobody does jack shit because we use it as a campaign issue. And then we forget about it. Once the guy, whoever it is, wins or loses, whatever, then poof, like a fart in the wind. Nobody talks about it. Same thing with abortion. Same thing with women's reproductive rights. Same thing with whatever. It's the same. You notice this every 4 years. Hell, even every 2 years, right? When we get into the midterms in the United States, it's always the same conversations. It's always the same issues. Maybe it's race, maybe it's women's reproductive rights. Like in 2022, of course, it was kicking Roe v. Wade to the states. That was a big deal. And really, all it is and nobody talked about it right up until the election cycle of 2024, right? And so that's why we keep having these things come up, because we know that this is what's going to agitate female voters, right? What's going to agitate male voters? How about immigration, right? We don't want them to come over here, right? And so when we're looking at like open borders, one of the reasons why open borders or like immigration is such a big deal for like sort of like this liberal, progressive, wokesy sort of mindset is because it coincides and it agrees quite well with the idea of communitarianism. Wouldn't it be a great idea if we just open borders and everybody could just be part of everything? We just have this big, gigantic, North American combine of all the Mexico and South America and Canada and everybody else. Can't we all just get along? And the answer is no. The answer obviously is no, right? And why is that? Because a hierarchical way of looking at society is a much more practical, much more realistic, less emotional, more rational way of looking at things. And so when you're looking at when we're deciding how to organize societies, and by that I mean who's going to be in political power, whenever women come into political power, they always think of the sisterhood first. They don't think of anybody else but themselves. So, and usually that's from a collectivist, communitarian mindset. And whenever we talk, I've gotten in these conversations before, and it really pisses people off. And I can't really get into it too much because it's not like a bumper sticker. It's not something you could just like sort of just finish up a conversation in 5 minutes with. It's something that you kind of have to get involved in. So just so you can understand, there's evolutionary reasons why women have this sort of mentality when it comes to organizing societies. And so when you put women into positions of power, that's what they lean towards. And when you put women into positions of education and you put them into positions of like social preeminence, let's just say, so you put them into social program, like social work, you put them into social sciences, when you put them into psychology, when you put them into the legal system, which by the way is becoming more and more dominated by female judges, female attorneys, female defendants, defenders, whatever it is. The legal system is inundated with women right now, almost more so than psychology. And I was just made aware of this like recently. I've just been sort of like had a keen interest in this because I saw so many female judges that were coming up for the last election cycle, and they ran unopposed. And so when we start talking about, we need to get more, we really need to get more men involved in teaching positions. Well, that's a noble cause, Dr. Richard Reeves. How about we put more men into local like politics, like your county commission, your mayorship, your board of commissioners, whatever it is, like the county department, because every single one of those people who were running for those offices this year were female. I think I might have out of probably about a dozen different offices, I think I saw maybe 3 or 4 guys running for those, and they were running against women who are already the incumbents, right? And I'm just like, if you want to look at the fundamental differences in sort of like the psychology of political science or politics, like how women and men sort of will run the world or run the governments, women have a much different approach, and it's like unignorable. I think maybe now we're finally beginning to see that. And so I think it's funny that we want to make these pushes for like, oh, we need to elect more females into office, right? And then you go, well, if gender is a social construct, then why would that matter? They never have an answer for that. If that's the case, why do we want to have 50-50 parity between, if at all? We don't really. They just want simply to have a majority of women in it. I still get this today. Like people go, that there's more men on the Supreme Court of the United States than there are women. I go, yeah, by a margin of 1, by a margin of 1, and it's like, there's a reason that the founding fathers made it like an uneven number, right? Yeah. I think it was like I think we're at 9, right? It used to be more than that. They've fluctuated between, but it's almost always been an uneven number, right? So they don't have that deadlock. Mm-hmm. And so really what they're pissed off about is that if there's 4 women and 5 guys, they think that those 5 guys are going to stand together, lock arms, and vote because they just have penises, right? And it's like, no, that's actually not the way it works, especially when it's like a liberal, a justice, right? And so, like, women will do that almost unilaterally. It doesn't matter what the issues are; they will always lock arms and vote for the sisterhood, right? Men, on the other hand, like, we'd much rather use our rational brains as opposed to the emotional side of things. And women lead with emotion, men lead with rationalism. And again, if you want the hard data on that, I'm more than happy to give it to you. But yeah, that's pretty much where I would go with this. Primarily, women are less interested in personal freedoms. They will sacrifice personal freedoms for security, because women's primary goal in life is long-term security, and that also shines through when they're organizing societies.